look at Sal Capaccio on the Bills news of the weekend. The suspensions for two of their new players, Larry Ogunjobi and Michael Hoecht, on PED suspensions. How the Bills found out, how the process goes. Brandon Beane announced that Friday, and you had a couple days to kind of digest it. Sal, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Hope you had a great weekend.
Yeah, not bad. Weather was nice. You know, some parades, some general revelry in beautiful weather at times. It was nice. So, Sal, take us through the timeline of all this for people that kind of, for me, it was this way on Friday. I'm sorry, wait, what? What's going on? Two guys suspended?
Yeah, for sure.
I think there's a lot of shock factor. I think it definitely does not look good. The question is, how did it happen? And is this one of those spots where Brandon Beane, he often does this, Sal, we have to reevaluate how we look at things when they get a draft pick wrong or something. Is there anything in that vein with regard to this story? So take us through it from your view.
Yeah, so Friday was really interesting, like you said, because Brandon Beane spoke to the media, and it was, hey, going to hear about all the people that they've signed, what's happened so far during the offseason. And then first thing that happened was he revealed that the Bills have a new strength and conditioning coach, Will Greenberg. Will Greenberg has been on staff with Eric Ciano, but we hadn't known that, so that was the first bit of news. And then following up on that as he went on, he told everybody that Michael Hoecht and then Larry Ogunjobi are both going to be suspended 6 games for PEDs. So I have read a lot of Bills fans who are very, I would say, confused, or at least think they understand what happened but didn't, and that's okay because I think there's a lot of confusion here. I'm not, even blaming anybody for that. But I would also say Brandon Beane's receiving a lot of heat from a lot of Bills fans over what you just said. They have to reevaluate, doing due diligence. So I've learned a few things since then about how the process works. But let's start with the timeline. So the way I understand it, and I just did a podcast with Matt Bove last night, and we both agreed. We both went through the timeline and said, do we understand this both the same way from everything that we know? The way we understand it is the Bills, they wanted to sign Michael Hoecht. Michael Hoecht said, and his representatives told the Bills, hey, just so you know, we're facing a 6-game PED suspension. We want to be upfront about it. And the Bills are like, okay, understand. Guess what? We want to sign you. So they knew about it. They went forward with it. He was upfront. And the way Michael Hoecht explained it, we didn't want to make a bad situation any worse, so we revealed it. Mm-hmm. When it came to Larry Ogunjobi, they decided they wanted to sign him. They agreed to the contract. He comes into Buffalo to sign the contract. Maybe it was right before that, but I believe he had been here already. And then he says, hey, just so you know, I'm facing a 6-game PED suspension. The Bills did not know. The Bills then had to reevaluate how they wanted to proceed. They looked around and said, we've already all the people that we may have wanted to sign are already gone. There's no other options at defensive tackle that we are interested in at this point. They talked with him, how it happened, why it happened, and they decided, okay, we're still going to sign. Now, so they signed him. Now, the question is that we're a little bit ambiguous on is, did Larry Ogunjobi and his representatives know before he agreed to the deal, or did he find out after he agreed to the deal and then he brought it? And since everything has gone down, what I've learned is, because I think where Brandon Beane's getting heat from fans, but he shouldn't be in this regard, is that he should have known. All right? What I found out on Friday by talking with some people is this is how it works in the NFL. There is no database, required disclosure, or anything like that for the whole league when someone is facing a PED suspension. It's not like the league finds out and then they put out a press release to the GMs. In fact, the league doesn't even do it. It's an independent lab that kind of does it, and then they tell the league exactly what's going on. But either way, there's nothing like that. The only people who know are the person who's facing the suspension, and assuming his representatives, and the team he's under contract to. In this case, it would be the Steelers. But remember, his contract was ending with the Steelers. Mm-hmm. If that player becomes a free agent, it's kind of just on them to say something. They don't have to. There's you got confidentiality issues, a lot of different reasons why. Now, to defend the player here, guys, I would say one of the reasons why, and this makes sense, one of the reasons why you might not say it is, if you're appealing the suspension and you tell everybody, hey, by the way, I might be facing 6 games, that really hurts you in negotiations. What if then you win the appeal, and then you just hurt yourself because you didn't think you did anything wrong. You didn't, but it hurts you. So there's a lot of reasons why there's a lot of things that you can get entangled here, if that all makes sense.
Yeah.
So if anybody says, well, Bills didn't do due diligence, they didn't know. I mean, I don't even know if you're allowed to just go up to a player. Are you facing a suspension? I mean, who does that? You know what I mean? Like, that's not how you recruit somebody. It's not how you sign. It's a rare thing. But there's no reason why the Bills or any other team would have known about it unless he said it.
Right. So Beane says, I wouldn't have signed 2 guys had we known. Does he just mean that from a standpoint of it's going to be tough down 2 guys for 6 weeks?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so. That's what I think he means. I think he means, hey, like, that's 2 defenders that we signed that, like, I wouldn't have targeted 2 guys if I'd known. They had known one, they didn't know the other. Right? Well, I wouldn't have done this. I wouldn't have signed 2, but now we're to the point of, well, there was nobody else, and we went through the explanation, and then whatever they adjust the contract to, we'll see if that's also something. But I believe that's what he meant when he said that.
Okay. On Michael Hoecht. So here's one. Sal, this one they did know about, and they did sign the guy, 3-year deal, and they knew about his suspension. Hoyt's explanation to me, I feel like we always have to be, mindful that every athlete has similar explanations. But to me, you can tell me I'm a sucker, I'm just buying it hook, line, and sinker. Watching him give his explanation, he comes across as convincing.
For sure, and I mean, like, people can be skeptical, they can be believing. There's a lot of time. These things, when they come down, everybody's going to have their own interpretation of, what the player said, what the reasons were, and a lot of times it just comes down to, your own personality or fandom or whatever, and how you want to believe it. So, they'll go forward here with that, and we'll see how all of this kind of shakes out with how the fans feel about the players and how they all integrate in. But I would say that when it comes down to it in September, it's more going to be people looking at it and go, okay, when are we getting Larry Ogunjobi back? When are we getting Michael Hoecht back? When are they going to fit in? One of the things that happens here is now, so everybody knows, let me just kind of lay it out how it works for everybody. These guys are allowed to be with the team, do everything the team does from now until the 53-man roster. So they are at OTAs, they're at mini camps, they're going to go to training camp, they're going to be involved in everything. They're going to play in preseason games. And then when the 53-man roster is set, they will go on what's called the reserve suspended list. The Bills will get 2 exemptions for them. So the Bills can still keep 53. They will be numbers 54 and 55, but it's kind of like being on IR, basically, is what it is. So the Bills, they'll still get 53 independent of them. They also won't have to count them on their salary cap for those games. So in that regard, they get a little bit of relief, in that way. And then after 4 games, they can start to come back and practice. But after 6 games, they can be activated, and then the Bills would have to obviously make some roster moves to have them a part of the 53-man roster.
Which would be week 7. Do you think, Sal, like when I first saw that they were
assuming no bye, Joe. Hold on, Joe. Assuming no bye before that, but you're right, yes.
If there is a bye, does that count as one of the, that doesn't count for the suspension?
No, it's 6 games. It's not weeks.
I see. Okay. So it could be week 8 if their bye was early.
That's correct.
So the impact of this on kind of the roster juggling, more so like playing time, Sal. When I first saw it, I thought, okay, well, like 6 games in September and October, I'm signing these guys to hope, I'm trying to win in the playoffs, right? Late in the year. But it's going to have a trickle-down effect. Like Joey Bosa might be one of these. We had talked about with you, like keeping him fresh and maybe you hold him off on snaps at parts of the year, but maybe even something like that is actually harder now because you just don't have important guys available that you were counting on.
Yeah, that's right. And, maybe they'll have to adjust that a little bit. I mean, there's so much that can happen between now and then, though, right, guys? I mean, they're going to go into the draft. They have, right now, I've counted, they have 67 players on their roster. 67. They have to get to 90. At least they're allowed to get to 90, as you know. So that leaves 23 more spots on the roster. But when you look at that defensive end and defensive tackle group, that entire defensive line group, I mean, outside of Hoecht, they only have 4 defensive ends, and I'm counting him as a defensive end. He plays everywhere. They only have 4 defensive ends: Rousseau, Bosa, Epinesa, Solomon. They're going to have to do some work there, even now, between now and then, to get more. I'm guessing that's going to come in the draft. There's still more free agents. There's undrafted free agents. There's guys that they're going to have there. When it comes to defensive tackle, If you take away Larry Ogunjobi, you're only down to 5, and only 3 of them, Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, and Dwayne Carter, really were players last year. Zion Logan, Branson Dean are also on the roster. So yes, Joe, I think what you're saying is right, but they have time here to kind of get more guys. And my guess is you'll get a veteran or two still signed as free agency goes on. Is this a spot where a Jordan Phillips comes back, right? A Quentin Jefferson comes back, something like that. And Austin Johnson, I'm not sure. I'm saying though those are obviously types of guys that I wouldn't. Whether it's them or somebody else, I would expect people like that to still come in, and then they're going to have the draft and free agency. And then that other stuff will be figured out, Joe, I think, as you get there. You have to treat these guys, as Brandon said, basically like guys that are injured, and they're going to miss some weeks, and they'll be coming back. At least you know when you can plan ahead, though.
Sal Capaccio on the Western Hotline. Adam in New Jersey quickly before the break. Adam. No, Adam.
So two good can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, buddy.
Yep.
All right, sorry. So 2 points I want to make. First off, the main concern that I have with all of this is that these guys are signed, and I don't know, it hasn't come out how long the PEDs, what they've been doing, how long they've been doing. What kind of athlete are we getting once they're off PEDs that they've been taking? And number 2, Jeremy, I disagree, and I know Sal's there. Andy Pettit was looked at because he did HGH. He's not in the Bonds and McGuire Sosa. Those guys did anabolic steroids. Andy Pettit did HGH, which is a little different. That's why he's looked at a different light.
All right, Adam. Banned substance is banned substance for baseball. I don't know how you'd make that sort of distinction. But to answer the other part of the question, these guys get drug tested all the time.
Yeah.
So it's one thing Michael Hoecht
tested, I think like up to 6 times in the offseason, I think if I read correctly.
Yeah, it's not like Larry Ogunjobi's been doing this for 8 years and Michael Hoecht's been doing it his whole career and just got caught. They get drug tested all the time. So the idea that something went into their system and then it got flagged, that's what happened.
Yeah.
So,
to me,
that's a good way to put it.
To me, the big picture question here would be, Sal, you went through how the Bills, they really have no way of knowing this unless the player comes to them about it.
That's correct.
I wonder if a team, maybe the Bills, someone that's been harmed by this, would could this be an owners meeting or meet in the future where we need some type of system where a team isn't walking up to a free agent and signing him and then a week later find out, he's out for half the year.
Immediately the Players Association is going to fight back on that and say, absolutely 100%. Not. And this reminds me of, you're in the housing market and, sorry, you're buying it without an inspection. That's how it's going to work.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'll tell you guys, I've talked to people over the weekend about this, and Joe, you bring up a great point, and there are people who believe that that's the way it should be, but Jeremy's right. You'd get a pushback, NFLPA, there's confidentiality issues. And again, I think from their standpoint, let's remember this, and I think this is a great point someone brought up to me this weekend. If you're a player, and you do get popped, let's say, for this, and you're appealing it and say, I didn't do anything wrong, and then all of a sudden, all these GMs find out that, you're facing the suspension, and you're like, well, I didn't do anything wrong, but they're going to not want to sign you, and then what if you're right? And then you cost yourself millions of dollars.
Yeah. All right, Sal. Thanks very much.
You got it, guys.
Sal Capaccio on the Western Hotline on the steroid, or not steroid, but whatever, performance-enhancing drugs.
Yeah.
Barry Bonds did a lot of HGH, too. That's a very strange line to draw.